few things can deal with the Tristana push early, and then the ability to combo up later into the game with double marksman or an AP bot lane into team fights.
That Tristana actually getting a late through is such a power pick for LNG, and it does still provide them some of that flexibility too. I think this kind of priority for Kanavi would be very interesting earlier on for JDG. I still do feel like the Sejuani is so important for Tarzan, but that engage, that forward pressure is going to be there for JDG this time around.
Yeah, so LNG, they're going to have to lock in something from the jungle, which are going to again allow you to play through the long-range backline. You said there's some flexibility between the Tristana, between mid and bot lane. If this Varus is locked in, I don't think you realistically want to take the Tristana into that. I think that would again, and like I said, I kind of want LNG to play it in mid lane anyway because Scout is so good at it. And also you have the secondary factor of Gala playing stuff like the Ziggs in the bot lane. This would change things a lot though.
There's that flexibility.
Hey, so even with the Varus being one of the strongest laning AD carries on the patch, Gala will pick the Tristana and Scout gets LeBlanc. Even after the static shift nerfs and what have you, still very powerful and will allow him to really be flexible in this mid lane about how he approaches fights.
And LNG were so mobile in game number 1. Well, they're sticking right to that here in game number 2. This is a pick you talked about in draft number 1, though. It is Annie that comes through as an answer to the LeBlanc.
So in game 1, we talked about the Nico being an engaging mid lane pick, but the engaged mid lane pick of LPL in 2023 has been Annie. Knight is the best Annie in the world. He showed us all what he could do at MSI on that pick, and it doesn't matter how much mobility you've got, you will get stunned by that Annie. She's not going to let you move. So suddenly JDG, they have the proactive pieces in this early game. Very interested to see now if that Rell will head towards spot lane and be a kill lane with the Tristana, or whether it's going to go towards jungle to allow some flexibility for Hung in a bot lane matchup.
I do wonder, as we get into the second phase of bans here, Jax is banned away towards LNG, trying to take away a strength of Zika, as well as the Nautilus banned towards missing, so taking away some of those actual point-and-click CCs, but also some lockdown against the Tristana and LeBlanc. I think that's going to be crucial to continue banning that out in the second phase. We get yet another Melio here in game number 2 banned out.
Yeah, so that was the Tristana-Melio combo was actually a combo pulled out by OMG, really. They were the ones that innovated around that because it allows Tristana to play as though she's a couple of levels higher because, you know, she gets range per level, but Melio gives that anyway, and then you become an absolute artillery turret later into the game. Very important ban away for scaling purposes. I wonder if Renekton's going to have a big priority in this now. It is going to be that last ban. You don't want to give that over to the Renekton Sejuani. Who's blind picking now for JDG? They're going to pick in that Alistar, not leave that bot lane for last, and now that it allows 369 to have a bit more ability to counterpick that top lane.
The Alistar for game number 1 of missing was actually pretty pivotal. A lot of tanking coming through, a lot of focus towards him. I will say, though, in this second phase, it is important for LNG to continue finding that stability for their composition. We got to see Zika on the Ksante in game number 1. He had a lot of great backline access, but it came down to where JDG were able to protect their backline. Now we're going to see a second iteration of the Ksante for him.
Now, what are we going to go see from 360?
The Leona, let's go.
All right. So we get ourselves an engaged bot laner that will give an extra engaged threat alongside the Rell. So it's not just Tarzan going alongside himself. So it's Rell jungle, Leona into that support. 369 is going to lock in his second poppy of the series, even with just those 2 games locked in already. He's going to be playing once again a bit of blocker for his backline.
I think it's super important to keep that factor in. We are getting a different iteration from LNG. It feels like this time around a little bit of different compositional strength coming through, but also a lot of kind of separate style, right? You get to have a lot of that forward engage, but also some side lane pressure too.
It's not as cut and clean as game 1, which was obviously red team go engage, blue team go disengage. It was very easy. That's the easy ones. I get to like say one line, I get to take the rest of the game off.
Yeah.
Game 2, it's going to be a bit more back and forth. I think particularly LNG have side lane options. If they can stabilize the map and stop JDG from very cleanly engaging onto them with stuff like the Annie.
It's been a long time coming for Tarzan. It's been a long time coming for LNG in their first ever finals of the LPL. We're headed now, and let the gyos ring.
Hits a little bit different with the extra percussion in as well. We have some big drums in the arena to help lead those gyos. It's not just one person shouting out to lead those crowds in their own team support. A little bit of different level 1 from these teams. See that Scout and Hung walking forward, maybe looking to get a deep ward onto a starting camp.
Actually take a look across as well, and you get to see the similarity in top side as well, the same matchup we got in that game number 1, but I think the most pivotal change is this jungle matchup, the Sejuani versus the Rell. We have seen if Rell can't be proactive, you kind of fall off. You're just kind of an engage tool for yourself, and Sejuani has been such a pivotal piece for so many teams in the LPL because it provides that direct engage with the Glacial Prison. We will see opposite side starts for both Tarzan and Kanavi.
So, when you have opposite jungle starts, of course, it means that you're more likely to find yourself into a lane at the end of your path. I think in the current meta, though, it's kind of hard, especially with these side lanes as well, to get the best engage ever. Level 1 trading in this mid lane, Scout and Knight, absolutely no strangers to getting that mid lane priority when they need it.
And the fact of the matter is that Knight was, gearing up. Everybody talked to him about, oh, you're not facing a Gala anymore. It's going to be Scout. How does that feel? He was very confident in the words he had to say about Scout and the way that he can approach this best of, because there is that much confidence built. Speaking of confidence, 369 approaching this top lane a little bit different than game number 1, I'd say, Nymaera.
Hits level 2, realizes he has the graph stacked up and goes in for a hard trade. So Zika not going to get himself free reign in this top side.
Not going to have a 50 CS lead again?
No? Well, we'll see. The thing with something like a matchup like this is that once you get into kind of kill range, you can kind of lose out several waves until you get a chance to reset. That's where the big leads come in. So Scout knows that Kanavi's in the bush here. He's trying to bait this in. He knows he's in danger.
Oh, I tried to get the flail there, but you get Scout moving away. Does end up breaking a couple ankles there on the back end. Just a nice little presence from Kanavi early.
Now, for the record, folks, when you see the jungler on the top side of your lane, you don't normally walk towards the top side of your lane, but what this does is buy time for Tarzan to get the blue buff. So Scout does it better than so many other players.
Chess.
Huh?
40 chess. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the problem is that if you're playing 40 chess, you actually have to play against an actual chess piece and a knight. So good luck with that one.
Knights don't have a lot of movement on the chessboard, all right?
But he can give you an L. That's the only movement they can do.
Yes. And, they already got an L handed to them in game number 1. So we'll see LNG put a little bit more focus on this bottom side. Again, if you can attack Ruler, it is so important. We've seen it work out for so many teams, but it goes wide.
Well, one of the reasons it goes wide is because Missing has a handy minion taxi there, headbutts his way out to that one. Tarzan still finding ways to get into one of these lanes. As we said, that when you start on opposite sides of the map, there's a chance that you can find yourself into a lane. As this happens, Tarzan goes to the invade instead. He's left his top side quadrant untaken for now. But LNG, once again, coming in with a pretty good early game plan. Tarzan takes Scuttle. He's going to head back towards this bot lane again. Is Hung going to commit the flash this time?
Proactivity is key on the Rell, and Tarzan facilitating his lanes is of utmost importance for LNG to find anything in this game number 2. Kanavi will take the end of the trade here and take his blue side jungle.
I wonder how many camps he can actually take from this one as well. 369 crashing in the wave towards top side, so we will have the ability for his top laner potentially to move over, but with the low mana, that's unlikely anyway. So Tarzan, he wasted a lot of time, let's be honest, towards that bot side. Goes for 2 attempts towards bot side. Neither of them work out. Kanavi gets ahead in the individual jungle matchup because of it.
And you get to see now, actually, Tarzan going to find Kanavi at least, or at least know that his jungle has been taken. Kanavi was able to get the blue and the Gromp there in the end. Just trying to look for a little bit of vision gain. Tarzan will get the bad news in the end.
Kanavi going to take away the vision plant, an extra small victory there. So
5 goals.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Whereas in game 1, we were talking about Tarzan getting the better of the early game. He definitely got the objectives as well up until that second Herald. This time, it feels like Kanavi, he gets himself the better end of the stick this time.
And I still, early focus from LNG going bot side, I like that, but I need to see a repeat. I need to see a continuation. Now, in game number 1, they had full objective control until it went terribly awry, and it is something that they can continue pressing in game number 2.
Of course, in early game, bot lane pressure with that kind of ability to, walk around the map, as you were saying, map pathing, really depends on what your bot lane's doing as well. Focusing in on that, Ruler and Missing, they know they're on the weak side. They know that Tarzan had both bot quadrants under their control. They managed to keep themselves safe from those attempts. They freeze it outside of their tower, and that's led to a 10 CS lead already in this bot side. Ruler, one of the best Varus historically in League of Legends. Of course, he played that in
I feel like we could say that about every champion that Ruler gets to play now.
Particularly in Season 7 when he won Worlds, Varus is one of the champions. It was absolutely insane. They've got a slow crash here. Missing needs to be very careful, though. He's missed the
that Zenith Blade actually connected on the back end, and Tarzan, for a 3rd time, will show his face bot side, and Missing should just go down to Gala. First blood for LNG.
Just a slight misread on the map from Ruler and Missing. They'd done so well up until that point of being on weak side, knowing where Tarzan was going to be and that they were likely going to be under threat. So Tarzan, once again, in the early game, getting something running for LNG. What can they capitalize from that this time, though? First kill to a Tristana, that's good, but what's going to come of it?
You got to see actually Ruler taking a quick back there as well. We get Zika going for the top lane matchup. Ends up getting slam dunked away by that keeper's verdict. We get the dragon started by LNG.
Okay, so what's going to happen with this one? Ult used from Knight, he's chunked out Scout. Is that enough for JDG to fight?
Tippers is already used, but is making himself known. To get the re-engage there by LNG. Look at the rocket jump too. Triple knock up there though, comes through for missing, and now Ruler's able to fire away.
Resets!
Kanavi's already there, Knight's already gone, and now the reset's coming through. Kanavi gets away, the cleanse coming out as well. This is a little bit for Ruler to make his name. It will be one more going through. No, the knock-up is there, and Ruler gets the kill again. It's the first kill at least for JDG.
Knight goes down, but Ruler stands his ground. LNG can't quite make that one work, and this time it's going to be JDG with the early objectives taken. What's that going to mean for the rest of the map? Top laners, of course, weren't involved in that one. They were doing their absolute best to make sure that neither of them can influence the bot side of the map.
And we get to see the replay locked in here. LNG, they want it. Gala was bold for that rocket jump.
He was, because immediately, because everyone piles onto the same target, 3-man Pulverize coming in from missing. It's really high damage in the early game. People forget about that. You don't have items built up there. Base damages means a lot, and Alistar has a lot of that.
He does, and we saw missing tank up so much in game number 1. There's a reason they went right back to the Alistar, and the fact that Ruler gets the kill is so huge for him. Well, you'll see if that does end up being anything of promise, because it was Scout and Gala who have gotten kills on the side of LNG as well.
Worth noting in terms of builds, we have Lethal Tempo coming out from that Varus, which does mean that we're going to have ourselves a bit more consistent DPS. Not going to be poke, it's going to be more towards that crit/on hit coming through from Ruler. So if you fail the engage and he gets to auto attack, you die. That's the long and short of it. Maybe less ability to play those fights slower and from longer range, but if you get into the meat grinder, which these team compositions are both designed to do, Ruler's got damage.
I just want to zoom out for a second, because in a game number 2, we're only 2 games into a best of 5, and we're not even close to being done with this one. But the fights, the commitment from both teams, again, the decisiveness that we talked about from game number 1, it is still rampant here, and you love to see that.
Dude, I mean, JDG, you don't ever expect them to play timidly. This is a team on their way to do the unthinkable. It's a ways off yet, but they have got half of that golden road already walked. If they win this title here as well, that's 3/4 of the way towards it. It would just be Worlds after that point. LNG, no one really expected them to be here. And it feels a little bit mean to say that about the team, but that's how good JDG and BLG were. But then suddenly, LNG come into playoffs. 5-game series versus JDG, arguably should have won it. They knock out BLG in the lower bracket finals as well. They are very well deservedly in the finals, but they have to have one last hurrah here to put JDG to the edge.
And they're running the gauntlet, man. It ain't easy. The tired factors, the fact that you've been playing so many best ofs, you gotta get in one more time, or even a couple if you're gonna be in the regionals. But LNG, if they want to make it to where they would need to win here, right? They need to get this if they want to get first place and be that guaranteed ticket as well.
That's absolutely true. If LNG were to lose this, they go into the regional qualifiers, they have themselves another shot. JDG, they're already there. If you're a BLG fan, by the way, you're a fan of JDG weirdly today as well, because if they win, BLG would go on circuit points beyond that point. But for now, it's about the Silver Dragon Cup. It's about winning that title.
That title is oh so very clear with these two teams. They are wanting everything on the Rift. I think JDG themselves, they already got their championship, they got their MSI, but it is something where they want to make a lasting mark. They want to make a lasting legacy in the mojo that they've been building themselves.
And that mojo, yes, they could win a championship. But what about a second champ? What about a third championship in a row?
Yeah.
Only ever been done once before, and that was 8 years ago by ADG. So JDG on the precipice of history in so many different ways. As it happens in this game, got a little bit of a slowdown again after that first Dragons come through. No real huge advantages coming in besides that real bot lane, which you expect from a Varus in laning phase.
But that's the thing. Game number 1, it felt like this as well. We were getting some trades back and forth. All of a sudden, we start getting 5-on-5s over and over and over again, and then JDG won the game somehow. So in the end, it is something where both teams are being very respectful until they find those ends.
Do you reckon that can be the start of a new saying we have? Like, craziness happens and somehow JDG wins?
Yes.
That does feel like
honestly, at this point, crazy is our game indeed. We get that Rift Herald down here for LNG. Will be defended very heftily by JDG.
And the important thing here is that, so mostly against Tristana, you never want to give Herald up, but because Tristana has to lane into the Varus, you very rarely get a clean approach towards a turret to get a bomb down. Even with that Herald, that's a miss.
Scout and Knight going at it here. Yeah, that's a little bit rough there as Knight gonna go a little bit wide on that one. Scout able to provide a lot of pressure from mid lane, and we're getting about a minute out from the Dragon.
Yeah, so Knight, bit of an awkward moment at that point. He's self-ruler, pixels off. Gala jumps away.
Able to get out of that one. Zika's trying to proxy farm, but gets dragged into the wall right there by 369. He will have the all out. He might have to end up popping it here. 369, very, very strong. Earlier on this pop, he has a lot of skirmish power. We'll see him actually just go right back to the wave as we do. Radiant Virtue, first item picked up for Tarzan.
Okay, so that's going to be a bit more of the, again, in the short-term fights when you're leading with the Rell ult, it allows you to kind of go into the meat grinder and have an extra couple of HP, have a couple of 100 HP on your teammates to really get through that. It feels like that's how the game's going to evolve. When we get to the team fights, it's everyone being pulled into melee range by a Magnet Storm or Alistar pulverizing everyone in the same screen and then seeing who comes out on top. It's going to be a real battle of HP bars. The Righteous Glory, you can understand why he's built it.
We can see Scout picking up that static shiv as well. We are talking so much about the 1-3-1 possibilities that LNG do have, but it's something they need to execute on, and that static shiv is a good start to that, right? You'll have a lot of priority in pushing in the side lanes as well.
Yes, and that's revisiting something that we talked about very early into the draft from LNG. Once they had the LeBlanc locked in, they knew that Tristana was bot lane. LNG do have a second win condition here, which is not just Zika trying to outplay in the Ksante versus Poppy match again, but LeBlanc having unparalleled side lane presence in this game. So the reason why this became first pick priority when Static Shiv was stronger. If LNG can slow down the game and stop JDG from engaging on them, they might be able to win through 1-3-1.
And we were talking about LNG's composition a little bit, but I got to go back to, the biggest factor for JDG. They do get that Dragon, but it will be a lot of centered engage that needs to be there, right? We were talking about bar of execution for LNG last game, but if you don't find those engages, you don't find the Chains of Corruption, the Glacial Prison, the Tiber's ulti with the stun behind it, I think that's where JDG really need to look to execute on.
For sure, because again, the name of the game at that point is if JDG do fail these engages, like you're saying, the bar of execution, if that's not met, LNG get to play through the side lanes. Now, what's going to help JDG on the other side is that they have two Dragons. It's an Ocean Rift. When it's going to be, meat grinder team fights, if it does come down to 5v5s, Ocean Soul is going to be an extra lot of HP. You've got a Radiant Virtue on one side. Imagine effectively the Dragons doing the same thing in terms of the Ocean Soul on the other side, but permanently, and to an even better degree. So JDG, early objectives, going to very much help them win this game if they can stick through to a Soul point.
Now, we will have another Rift Herald coming up here as well. I do expect LNG to have a little bit more priority around that, at least try to, because if they don't contest these objectives to some extent, it's going to be a lot more difficult because they need to be able to pull apart JDG, and one part of that is not giving them all the neutrals.
For sure, and they have the Tristana, right? They got that first Herald, but they couldn't put down the bomb on turret to finish off a turret, like in the way that you really want from a Tristana. Maybe a second Herald can help them in that same regard. Plates have fallen. We've got 40 seconds until that next Herald. It was uncontested, as you were saying earlier on. Interested to see how these rotations come out, the resets come out, to potentially fight for these next objectives coming up.
I'd like to see now resets coming out, a lot of pings from JDG as well going up towards this top side, but this is what I wanted to see. Hung and Tarzan connecting because we had all that strength in the engage from Hung moving early last time. They need to get some vision control around these objectives.
So Tarzan gets himself a camp steal. He's fallen behind in the individual jungle matchup. That happened fairly on into the game, and Kanavi's just been grinding out some extra camps here and there. JDG, by the way, the best team at fighting for and removing your access to jungle camps in the game. It's called jungle control. It's like, as a team, how many camps are you taking compared to your opponent? JDG do it better than everyone else. But as it happens, it's less about those jungle camps right here. It's about the Herald being started up on the top side by LNG, and Scout, as we said, being a side lane threat.
369 try to bait out Scout there, but it should just be this turret going down, and that's that side lane pressure coming to work here for LNG as they get first turret of the game.
But what can you do against this LeBlanc? So JDG, again, bit of a blueprint to see how things are going to work out later into the game. If Scout gets unparalleled, or rather uncontested time in a side lane, he's going to do a lot of damage towards those turrets. LNG now going to go towards that Herald as well. That'll be double downing on victories if they could have it, but they're not too keen to quickly fight JDG.
This ebb and flow we're getting, man. The tension, you could just feel it. Neither team really going for the committal at least, and now it looks like LNG are still positioning around this. Tarzan and Kanavi are hovering this Rift Herald consistently.
I think LNG can afford to play this a little slower. At the end of the day, they're going to be able to static shiv wave clear on the bot side as much as 369 is pushing in right now. You can see that Zika is towards that top lane too. He might be caught out a little bit too much though. I don't think he sees JDG rotating towards him.
369 has the TP available. You also are about to have it for Scout. You do wonder if this is going to be one of those full-on fights, but it looks like JDG have actually had to change off of that Rift Herald play.
Yeah, real tug of war. You can see that there's some attempted catches. JDG tried to roam up to catch Zika. They couldn't manage it. While that was happening, Zika safely backs off, and Gala gets to shove in towards wave towards mid lane. While that's happening, bot lane has a very similar push and pull, as well as 369 has actually been able to answer Scout for the short term in his bot lane, and that has meant that we've had a very delayed Herald take. It's not been easy to get towards it.
I love 369.
Yeah?
being a pain to Scout, not letting him get that back off, but I think that is important, right? Delaying some of that timing for LNG, where they are a composition, they want to try to stretch the map on you.
And of course JDG not able to find their own engage yet. That's the way you stop the 1-3-1. You take one bit of it away because they can't all help each other. They're too far away on the map. They're not going to be able to respond to the big plays. LNG go back towards the Herald. They know that JDG have shown on different parts of the map, and now they've started to get some resets as well. It does look like it will be an uncontested Herald. I don't think that this will stop LNG from being able to get in place for the second dragon, but it does mean they won't have wards for this set as well, the third dragon. They won't have themselves vision control for it. While JDG give up this Herald, you can see around the dragon pit 4 different wards put down by JDG as they give up the Herald.
And I think, you know, when you're looking at win conditions, you have that Ocean Soul you were talking about earlier. I think JDG are perfectly fine playing around that, giving this split of full objectives over. We have the Rift Heralds all in LNGs, and we have those Dragons for JDG. Now, going back into it though, you can get a crack on another turret here for LNG with this Rift Herald, giving you a little bit more safety on the map, it feels like, and less defensive tools to JDG.
Question is, LNG, what are you going to do about this next dragon? You don't have vision control around it. You don't have push in mid or bot lane. Scout's going towards top lane, which is, of course, your strongest pushing champion in side lanes right now. It feels like JDG, it could be a bit of a free soul point for them. LNG are not contesting as it happens.
We get the Rift Herald in mid lane, should be able to crack that one as well. LNG look to be trying to trade some of this map control for these objectives, and they will end up getting another outer. The top side outer almost down as well because of Scout's poking and prodding. Another charge, is it going to go through? Denied. And that will be the dragon number 3 going to JDG.
All right, everyone set your watches. The time is on now. Dragon spawning in 4 minutes 50. If LNG give that one up, you gotta feel like JDG walk away with any big team fight after that point.
Oh,
Zika.
Zika.
So strong. Scout looking for a big play.
Zika's on the other side. Scout has come into the play, but 369 is being such a crucial factor here. He does have Zika on the other side, though, missing, getting a little bit lower. The Unbreakable tanking up so much. But you get 369 all outed here. He needs to be careful. He went in for that engage. The Glacial Prison has missed, but Zika's going to go so low, too. Kanavi wants to go in. The Ignite's not going to be enough. And Tarzan goes right back in with the Magnet Storm. Here comes Hung 2, and Gala gets the kill. The resets have a
Whoa!
but look at Missing going in with the engages, and it's still Ruler, full health, full arrows in the quiver, firing away. Can't get Tarzan in the end, but we got contested fights and a bit of a one-sided one where LNG.
I mean, it's a one-sided one in the fact that one team gets kills and the other one doesn't. But this is the meat grinder we've talked about all this game, because it's all about these low health, kind of trying to survive towards the end of the fights. It's not completely about the burst. Scout teleports into the play. 369 tries to play blocker on him to stop the LeBlanc getting a huge amount of damage down. And what you're really going to see is how both of these teams try to play around the full breadth of their HP bars. 369 is fairly tanky for this point in the game, and you can see how well he uses that. LNG, they can't quite buy enough space, but this is the kind of team fight we're going to see time and time again. Every point of HP is going to be used again.
That's what you expect from two of our best teams, the third seed from Hell and the Golden Road laying JDG. It is still, for me, coming down to a lot of factors, but Gala and Ruler are oh so crucial, and we've known that from the start for both these two teams.
Absolutely. It does feel like Knight and Scout, they'll have their one moments of brilliance, which might just be removing one of those carries from the other side of it. But Knight there gets a good two-man Tibbers in that big fight, but it's not going to be the real knockout blow. So, taking a step back again, though, this doesn't change the fact that JDG are still on Soul Point, doesn't change the fact that LNG still have themselves some point of powers with the gold that they've traded for those dragons. They traded it for side lane turrets, for the mid lane turret as well, but they have to capitalize on this. They couldn't do that in game 1. JDG out-team fought them, and they were very close to being out-team fought in the first fight of game 2.
They were indeed. I think some of that scrappiness is working both ways, but it's something where we saw JDG kind of wake up in that game number 1 of their series. You are wondering if that's going to happen yet again, but LNG have a lot of options to kind of pull them apart, and that's what we were saying, a lot of that side lane pressure being so important for LNG. Now, though, with that timer coming about 2 minutes, I do want to check in on some item completions. We do have about second items coming up for major carries. We've got that Gwynsu's for Ruler as well, second item too. Baron is just started up by LNG.
Turns out LNG don't want to talk about items, they'd rather be using them. They're using them on the Baron. This is off vision. JDG, they don't spot this right now. They've got the blue trinket on there. Can they approach quick enough? It's going down.
Zika's going to keep him out here. Kanavi over the wall. Can he get in? Zika, I thought you were going to stop him. All out goes through, and Kanavi can't get into the pit. Denied from the Baron. It is Zika's life for 4 purple capes.
That is one great use of a Ksante death. That's a good death if I ever did see one. JDG, what can they do with the response now? There's no Ksante to help team fight. They are in a 5 versus 4 on the map. Can they force a fight during this time, though? Before LNG gets a reset and use this Baron, they snuck away under JDG's nose.
Looks like nothing's going to come of it here. Scout getting aggressive in the side lane a little bit. That is not good. That is not good for Scout's promises in the side lane. The fact that 369 has been taking him to task. But now it is about using this Baron with the 1-3-1 style composition that they've had.
A serious shout out to 369 for stopping Scout from getting huge side lane advantages. Yes, he still managed to kill some turrets, but he hasn't taken over the map. With the Baron, will that change things? With the Dragon coming up in a minute, with the ability to push waves in before that Dragon starts, will that change things? LNG, they need to stop this Soul coming through.
The Night Harvester spike for Scout is also so important, but he needs to get as much pressure in the side lane before this Dragon comes to bear. It's not something you want to just let go for LNG. Even if that Elder Dragon maybe looks so promising, you can see the push coming through.
So we do as we always do in the lead up to these fights. We check objectives and the time is on them. We check the vision and we check the cooldown. So there are a lot of flashes available. Every carry importantly has them. Kanavi doesn't for a few seconds, but will do very shortly. Pretty much every ultimate on the board. In fact, every ultimate available too. We are armed and ready. JDG looking to get themselves an Ocean Soul, which could turn the game in their favor.
And you'd hope that they can secure that one. Gives a lot of priority to them on the map and also just sets up that Elder Dragon for them. I do wonder though, now that we have LNG using some of that priority from mid lane to get here, you're seeing them actually point and present here that JDG are a little bit behind the ball.
These kind of Dragon fights are where LNG lost the game versus JDG in game 1. They have a bigger gold advantage this time. They have item spikes this time, but 369 is on the flank and he is not seen.
That is a heck of a flank too. He's looking like Scout from game number 1. LNG have taken the bait. The Keeper's Verdict. Who's it going to hit here? It's
Gala!
This is a 5v4 now and Gala's gone. That is so huge. And JDG, they're trying to fight this before Gala gets back. They get Knight down as well. Scout already takes one. You're trying to get the resets here though. Is Tarzan going to go down? He gets taken out. Resets there from Gala as he goes back into the pit, but it's a 3v3, and nice triple knock up there as well. They can't get Ruler. He goes down, and it might just be Gala the saving grace here. He's still alive, and the double knockup comes through. Zika, he is still ripping them a new one. It's Kanavi and 369 though that turn it all around, and Zika might have gotten that one, but he's gonna be dragged down by the demons of JDG.
How the heck does a Poppy do 5,000 damage in a fight at this point in the game? Ocean Soul secured for JDG, and the meat grinder turns LNG into paste eventually. They take down the carries, but they can't finish off the fight. JDG, they get themselves the objective, and that is the most important thing they could have hoped for.
Oh my goodness, we got 5.5 minutes for the Elder, but we got to take a look at this one.
369. What a couple of games he's had so far. Yeah, game 1, he was at a CS disadvantage, but he gets the Gala Tristana right out of the fight at the start. One of those carries immediately punted out. Yes, Ruler, Knight, they're separated out in their own ways by Zika. Feels like both top laners had a great fight, but already the damage difference with Gala being away for another 5 seconds, that couldn't be overcome by LNG just at the end of it.
The fact that Zika is able to solo out Ruler, and then it's literally just a bunch of noodle fights going down with Gala gets taken out. In the end, trying to make his way through this one. He does make it out alive, but there's no more influence from him in the fight.
Of course, during all this, Kanavi gets the Dragon. It's kind of hard to see it in the midst of all this, but of course, I mean, Tarzan's dead. He's not there to smite it. Kanavi goes in and takes that one for free. It feels like LNG once again out-executed at one of the important objective fights.
We needed some execution from both sides, and right now that engage potential from JDG is looking real good. But speaking of engage, LNG want it. They want Ruler. They go right on him. Solar Flare connects. The king is gone, and that means LNG can strike at the peasants that lie beneath him. It's Gala popping off. It's Scout popping off, and LNG, they are alive and well.
Ocean Soul be damned. The 7 Seas couldn't help JDG in that fight. Ruler doesn't stay alive through the full engage. Kanavi, one of the last remaining members, going to get soloed out in his jungle.
Can't believe it has amounted to this. The back and forth nature, the boxing match, and Kanavi is taking up a storm here. He should be able to not survive at least. The blast code nicely targeted by Tarzan. It's going to be a slow and steady burn, but the entire time LNG are looking at mid lane.
Scout was almost thinking about leaving it there. The Ocean Soul keeping it
still going!
He's unkillable!
Why is this happening on my screen right now? My God, Kanavi has literally been fighting a 1v2 for a minute and a half. They're gonna have to call everybody to try and take this man down. It's literally all 5 members of LNG bot side, and Kanavi finally just gives his life to the turret.
That is the League of Legends version of a Viking burial. He goes out on a ship in flames, but it takes the entire team of LNG moving away after a 1-team fight for that to happen. LNG, they didn't want to have to waste that time killing the damn pig on the bot side of the map. Kanavi, somehow, some way, in one of the most hilarious moments, buys a pretty big win after the fight for his team. Couldn't buy his team the actual team fight victory though.
We get to see the actual kickoff here of LNG. They full targeted rule, and this you have to do. This is the bread and butter. This is what you need to find to take down JDG.
No flash this time, no cleanse this time. Can't stand, can't fight. That does mean that a lot of the damage is immediately off the table. We're onto the Baron again. LNG pushing the tempo of the game forwards.
Fight round 2. Let's go. There's the TP coming in. That is going to be Knight with everything available. The Solar Flare already utilized. Baron down to 4,000 health. 369 comes in with a nice engage, but more so, you gotta look where Kanavi is. Can you get into the Baron pit? Zika going down. Knight's already gone to Scout 2, and LNG, they're trying to pick them apart one by one. The Baron is still contested here. Who's gonna win the smite fight? It looks like Kanavi's gonna commit. Tarzan, no! It's Ruler that gets it in the end! 369 gives his life. He had Gala another kill, but it's JDG that ended up taking the Baron while they lose their lives.
Are they gonna lose the game for this though? If Ruler dies, this could be it!
Oh my God, he got him out! Ruler's gone! Yeah, it's the head off the king, and LNG, they've made this a damn series.
Less of a scout, more of an executioner. It's regicide, the king is dead. Ruler has died at the hands of the LeBlanc, and though the Baron steal comes through, LNG steal the game instead.
They are looking to put a quick end to this one. We were wondering if they could find any promise in a best of 5 against our would-be golden roaders at JDG, but it is LNG that are able to put the bricks in the wall here in game number 2. They grabbed a very different composition from what they had in game number 1, and their execution was needed, and it met the bar. Give them one more or not. It's the nexus of game 2, and LNG even it up 1-1.
There will be no sweep today, folks. Not a reverse, not a 3-0, none of the like, but we will have ourselves an even series coming at that one. It's a glorified best of 3 now. LNG, they took that game against the Ocean Soul. They played that gambit, they said, okay, we'll give you that 3rd Drake, we'll get gold instead. We'll take down a couple of towers, and it worked.